Right now, a look back at what was a painful day for investors. This was how the big three markets closed on Friday, each down more than 5%. This was all in response to the latest retaliation to President Trump's tariffs on virtually all U.S. imports, specifically China hitting back with more than 30% tariffs on American goods. His only public comments on the economy were posted on social media saying, quote, "My policies will never change." Meanwhile, the president pressured the chair of the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates. Here's the Fed chair's response.
We've taken a step back and we're watching to see what the policies turn out to be and the ways in which they will affect the economy.
Say that this has caused a lot of uncertainty amongst investors and business owners. I mean, that's definitely an understatement, right? So our business expert, Ryan Frazier, is here to kind of help us break it all down.
Thanks for having me back, Lauren. I tell you, these are crazy times, and there's a lot to break down. So let's talk a little bit more about kind of what's happening and where things may be headed.
Yeah, so Jerome Powell says that they're going to wait. Do you think that that cut could come soon?
Yeah,
Not
well,
soon?
my gut says that, knowing Chairman Powell and the Federal Reserve, they're going to take a wait and see approach. They're very data dependent. They're going to see whether things are moving in terms of inflation closer to their target of 2% or not. So I would say not imminent, but pressure is building. As this trade war continues to take shape, there's going to be more pressure, especially by investors and the markets, to say we got to do something to help stimulate the economy versus waiting for it to continue to weaken.
Sure, yeah. And so what would a cut actually mean?
Well, when the Fed fund rate, which is what that range is what they cut, which currently sits at about 4.3% today, it typically means lower interest on things like mortgages. That's kind of important if you want to buy a house here in Colorado, or auto loans if you're thinking about buying that new or used car, business investment if you need to buy new equipment. So typically interest rates are used as a tool against recessions, but also to help stimulate the economy. But there's a challenge, Lauren, that is coupled with this, and you have to be very careful, because the issue is that tariffs could drive inflation. And sometimes cutting interest rates can contribute to inflation. And so if you have all these things driving inflation, yet your economic growth is slow, you can get what's called stagflation. And that's really bad too, because you have an economy that's not growing and people aren't making money. And so it's like, how do you afford anything? And so the Fed has to really be careful here in what they do. But ultimately, I think their decision is going to be driven by whether the tariffs actually do in fact increase the cost of living for more people here in Colorado and around the country.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that R word, recession. Fears of a recession are spiking. I mean, JP Morgan put the chances of a worldwide recession at 60%. So how do tariffs really fit into that fear?
So, tariffs, obviously increase costs, right? So think about that bottle of Bordeaux that comes from France, right? Mm-hmm. You like your French wine. And now it's, several bucks more expensive than it used to be, right? Or the exports when we send beef or wheat to other countries and they have retaliatory tariffs on us. It increases the cost. And when that happens, it tends to not only increase the ability or decrease the ability for people to afford things, but it also causes businesses to have more uncertainty. And as we spoke about this yesterday, when you have greater uncertainty, businesses tend to stop. They tend to pull back and contract. And when you have a contraction by businesses and you have less sales and less demand, that ultimately can lead to things like job cuts. Mm-hmm. And that can all contribute to a recession. And so tariffs are part of that system that, depending on how they play out, could really have a negative impact on our economy here in Colorado.
So today is Sunday. People are kind of looking ahead to the next week, right? Looking back at last week, we ended with 2 pretty tough days. What do you anticipate for this next coming week?
I can tell you that the big thing is going to be a lot of volatility. I think the markets are going to be super sensitive to whether there's any data around, is a trade war escalating? There's talk that the EU may pile on with Canada and China, and they're going to be looking at that. Is there any data around slowing economic growth? These things are all going to contribute to, I think, what we see Monday and the weeks ahead. I don't think this is going to be just next week. I think this is going to play out over the next several weeks, if not months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is there anything we're missing? Anything we gotta cover here?
Well, I just want to say, the president's end game here is truly about trying to not redirect, but reshuffle the global economy. He wants to reshore manufacturing. He wants to address what he believes to be unfair trade balances and unfair trade practices and trade imbalances. And so I think that he wants to be able to negotiate with these countries fairer deals for Americans. Now, whether it leads to that, whether this is the right decision, we're going to find out. But I think that's his end game, is he believes America's not getting a good deal. And he believes he wants to use tariffs to help get those better deals. But in the meantime, we Coloradans, we Americans, could feel a lot of pain.
Sure, sure. Well, lots going on here. Ryan Frazier, thank you so much for helping us kind of break it all down, making it a little bit more easy to digest. Thank you.
Thanks.